Yeah, we're just slowing down, just slowing down.
Hi everyone, welcome back to a new episode of the new Unfiltered. So I am almost, I think, 6 months now into living in London, and people keep asking me if I like it, and I am obsessed. I also just came off of my first London Tech Week, which was super cool. I spoke on a panel earlier with really big VP at Snapchat and Megan Loyce, who runs Gen Z VCs, which is super rad. But I also met the head of business development at LinkedIn, Elinor, and I am super excited to have her in the studio today to answer all of your career-related questions and talk about every do and don't on LinkedIn possible. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of the new Unfiltered. Elinor here and I just wrapped quite an intense 3 days at London Tech Week, and I am so glad that I am getting her on the show today because it's the end of what was an incredible conference, but more importantly, she has a very impressive role at LinkedIn, which is business development and partnerships, I believe. So why I wanted to have Elinor on is so many of you always ask me questions about how to cold call, email, introduce yourself, how to build a personal brand online. And LinkedIn is probably one of the best tools to start with. So Elinor, before I get into some questions with you, I would love to have you explain your story, how you got involved with LinkedIn and what came before this career path.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I think my career story actually really kind of puts the spotlight on personal branding or professional branding and why it's really necessary. So I started my career in the charity sector in nonprofits because I really, really like to make a social impact and to make positive impact on people. And then I worked there for almost 10 years in different companies and building partnerships and communities. But I wanted to do more at scale. And for me, or from what I could hear at that time, technology is the way to do good at scale. So I kind of transitioned into the tech industry, but it was really, really hard. It was a whole year full of rejections, and people don't really understand what I want from them. Like, what are the skills that I bring? I come from charity. So I had to know and to learn how to articulate my skills so they can really translate into the tech world. And eventually I got my first opportunity at Zinc VC, which is an incubator for social impact startups. From there, I moved into the British government to connect global startups with the British ecosystem, with the British corporates. And then I landed the role at LinkedIn, which is a little bit different. It's business development, it's product partnerships, which I can go on a bit later.
Oh, we will get into that. I'm so excited to have someone from LinkedIn literally talk about this particular matter. But before that, I would love to know your experience with university and college. I mean, I'm obviously American, but you weren't born in America. And the ecosystem, I think, in other countries for university is a bit different. So what was your experience with university? What did you study?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did my master's actually in organizational and social psychology at the LSE. I did that because I'm curious about people and because I love to learn how people come together. But I could not really apply it afterwards into any profession. And that was a little bit my frustration with academia, because I felt that at the time, and it was a long time ago, I wasn't given the tools and I didn't know how to push myself to get those tools. But nevertheless, it gave me kind of an entry point into the workplace, or a little bit more confidence, certainly communication skills and critical thinking. And so from there, I started kind of thinking what I want to do. At that time, LinkedIn was not a very strong platform at all. But, you learn the drill. You learn it in terms of networking with people face to face. And then you kind of replicate that into the digital world.
Did you have mentors along the way here?
Such a good question. I don't think I've ever had an official mentor. I was always a little bit confused on what a mentor meant, but I think I really had good people around me that wanted to help me. And I think the reason I created those connections, not just in my personal life, but also around colleagues, is because I also bring value to other people. Other people mean a lot to me. When I work with a colleague or with a partner or a client, I don't see them as their role. I see them as human beings, and I'm curious about them, and I want to establish those relationships. And at the end of the day, this comes back. People want to help you. So I think I wouldn't say I have a formal mentor, but I do have a very strong network around me that can support.
What's cool about LinkedIn is it obviously creates and opens the door for someone to reach out to somebody
Absolutely.
like you and ask to have you be their mentor. But prior to the rise and success of LinkedIn, as you said, it wasn't the biggest thing back in the day. So were you ever using this platform to find mentors, connections prior to joining the team?
So actually, I was a very, very quiet voice on the platform for many, many years. I was just an observer, looking at everybody, seeing how amazing they are, and just me being in the shadow, especially when I was working in the charities. Because charities have such a strong and clear mission to them. You tend to immerse yourself into their mission and completely forget about your own professional brand. Like, I know what I do. I don't need to tell the world at all about it. But then when I left, I realized that no one outside my immediate network had a clue about all the work that I did. And I felt I kind of learned the hard way of the need to talk to people about it and to share my achievement confidently. And so then I started slowly building a voice on the platform. And I actually took a workshop called I Am Remarkable. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's a Google workshop
Okay.
that helps women and underrepresented groups and actually everybody who's has those limiting beliefs to articulate their achievements and their successes confidently and effectively. So I did that workshop thanks to a very good friend who worked at Google at the time.
Can anyone do this workshop?
Anyone can do it,
Okay.
and it's free of
Free,
charge.
okay.
And it really planted that seed of self-promotion in me and gave me almost the legitimacy to go out and talk about my worth. And then I decided to be a facilitator, which in itself, it's such a strong exercise in getting yourself out there. So I became a facilitator. I facilitated these workshops for over 500 women
Wow.
and men. And also knowing that so many people face those challenges with articulating their achievements confidently also gives you confidence that you're not alone, and you also learn from other people.
Looking back at your younger self, were you very confident, or was kind of sharing your ideas something that was intimidating to you?
I was not, well, I would guess I was confident to an extent, but coming here from a different country 20 years ago made me feel a little bit, not part of the ecosystem and the culture here. English is not my mother tongue. I don't come from this culture. I had to really reinvent myself a little bit. But now looking back, actually, I think that my difference is actually what makes me unique. So now, as an older self, I play into my uniqueness and into my differences rather than trying to hide it.
Love that. What are some ways that you think someone who may perhaps not be from the country that they're living in or have an accent or be a bit insecure about certain things? I mean, how can you play into those weaknesses but actually make them strengths? Because I think that's really awesome. Most people would sit there and be like, oh my gosh, someone's noticing this about me, or I'm scared of this, but it's almost like twisted in your mindset to be an asset.
Exactly. And you touched on a really, really important point. It's a mindset thing. It's really knowing how to speak to yourself and appreciate yourself. So for example, with accent and different languages, I'm lucky that I have 2 languages that I speak. A lot of people maybe don't. So it's a skill. It's a skill that I need to be proud of and actually not hide it. In terms of my culture, if I'm a little bit more outgoing, a little bit more direct, that could be of service to someone. And also, I really learned, and I think that's also because I'm very active in diversity and inclusion and promoting that in the tech industry and in business in general, I really learned to appreciate differences. And I really learned to appreciate that in a team or in any business environment, it's good to have different people. So once you appreciate the difference, you start putting the spotlight on what makes you unique, your own perspective. So it's a lot in our mindset.
And the soft and kind of what is it? Soft and hard skills? Is that what they say?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, because off the camera before we started, you were chiming in on that topic. So any advice on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think to an extent both can be learned, right? Hard skills, it's easy. You've got courses. If you want to learn, I don't know, engineering, if you want to learn history or whatever it is that you want to learn, teaching, medicine, you can learn that. It's easy. Now, soft skills is something that you perhaps need to learn a little bit on the go, or you need to at least be aware of where the gaps are. So, for example, for me, when I saw that I have a gap in those self-promotion, what we talked about earlier, and not having the confidence to go out there and share with people what's my worth and what I've achieved, then that's something that you learn, I guess, from your network. You observe other people. There are some workshops around that. So all those soft skills, you can learn them. You just need to have that mindset of being aware where the gaps are, and then trying to talk to other people and see how they can help you kind of address those gaps.
Something I like about LinkedIn is it obviously gives someone the opportunity to create a brand career focused on themselves, but they don't have to deal with like calling someone up. Obviously, you can cold outreach via LinkedIn, but you don't have to deal with like going up to someone at a networking event and introducing yourself. So before, we get more into LinkedIn, networking wise and mentorship wise, how did you in the past go about approaching a mentor? Is there something you would encourage someone to say to someone to get them to mentor them?
So I think, first of all, it's up to you. If you want to be mentored by someone, it's up to you to explain to them why, and to have a very clear objective, because it can be very confusing for someone, and you'll be surprised that even very senior people might not be sure that they can help you, or they need some guidance as well. So when you approach someone, especially if you approach them cold, you need to be clear about why you're approaching them and what is the objective here. And not to ask for, the world. Sometimes it's nice to kind of limit the ask for, I need, I don't know, 3 sessions, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, however much you think you need. And then see how it goes and build that relationship like that. And that goes for everything. Every reach out that you make, whether it's on LinkedIn or anywhere else, needs to be very, very clear on why and what's the objective here.
What if you just want someone to mentor you? Like, what if you don't know the why? You meet someone like you at an event, and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, she works at a really big company. I don't know what I'm doing with my career, but I want you to mentor me. How can someone get in front of someone like you via cold outreach who has no idea what they're doing with their life?
Well, I think, that's actually also an objective, right? To understand what's the direction. There's always an objective. So you could potentially say that let's set up one meeting, one call, where we understand if there is alignment here, to put ourselves objectives during that call. And I think, the best way to do it is really to be honest, to say, I've seen your profile or I've seen your brand. I'm really interested in those areas where you work, whether it's social impact, connecting people, whatever it is. I'd like to learn more. Would you mind? And also, we don't need to talk about kind of mentoring as a big thing. Would you mind just having a virtual coffee with me? And then you see how it goes.
I would like to debate you on that, because I am curious. A lot of times I'll get people reaching out, can we have like a virtual coffee, or can I take you to a cup of coffee? And a lot of times I'm like, but why, right? Like, someone's reaching out, can we get a cup of coffee? I have no idea who you are. You're maybe reaching out on Twitter or LinkedIn. Is there a more strategic way to go about, like, hey, I think you're cool, can we get a cup of coffee or meet virtually? How do you, if you don't know what you're doing, ask someone to do that, but also be respectful of their time?
Yeah, but I get quite a lot of reach out from people who say exactly that. I'm just at the beginning of my career. I really want to figure out what I want to do. Would you mind just sitting with me 20 minutes virtually and help me, share a little bit about your experience and help me figure it out? And for me, 20 minutes is not a lot. And I'm very keen to help. And if there is some alignment there, of maybe the industry aligns or my experience, then I schedule another call at some point. So I think it's really being clear. Even if you don't have a specific reason why you're reaching that person, you need to show that, you actually read their profile, you actually know why you're reaching to them to an extent, right? There is a reason, and just be clear about it.
And I really respect that you'll give that 20 minutes, right? Because you obviously have a very impressive job title. So it's like, you have to make that time. So have you ever had people who ask you for that coffee and you don't feel like it was a good use of your time? Because mentorship should be a two-way street, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the reason that I do that, and I really try to do that, obviously there are times that I can't, but it's because I do remember that, especially that year when I tried to move from the charity into the tech, and how hard it was for me, and how grateful I was for people who did give me those 10 minutes. And it's actually through someone that I've met who worked at the time and in Facebook, and she's the one who told me, why don't you move into tech? There's so many things that, you can do in technology and bring your value. And so even that sentence made such a difference for me.
Yeah.
So I want to give back. I really want to give back as much as I can.
I love what you said about mentorship and giving that time, but also being confident and asking for it. What advice would you have given to your younger self when it came to not knowing what you're doing in your 20s? Because everyone is just so lost. I mean, I think the 20s in general are so hard, but especially if you have no idea what you're doing with your career and you work at the biggest career platform out there.
Wow. I mean, looking back, I really did not know what I was doing. I actually did not know what I want to do, what I'm good at. So it's easy now to talk, I don't know, 15, 20 years later and look back and it's like, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that.
What would you have done?
Well, at that time, I would certainly invest more in being more strategic in looking what are my strengths, what brings me joy, and then going after that. But instead of that, I went for my first job. I remember that was at Ipsos Mori, the research company. I was working in the qualitative research team, and there was no real reason for that. It was just, they gave me an opportunity and I went for it. And yes, it was a big company at the time, but the job was just to get paid and move on. There was no strategy behind it. Or there was no plan. So if I could give myself a little bit of advice is pause. Don't take everything just because you're given that. There'll be plenty of opportunities going forward. Think what brings you joy, not just actually what you're strong at. What gets you up in the morning. And this is, by the way, something that can change throughout the life, right? In the past, I was excited by working with children. And now I'm actually excited by working in tech. These are things that change.
Yeah, and I think that that's the kind of evolution of a person, is that change and knowing what you like. I mean, when people ask me, I don't know what to do for a career, I say that same thing. Well, what are you good at? Literally, like, I'm good at entrepreneurship, right? Are you good at washing floors? Do you like to knit? Do you like to run? You have to start there. I think people kind of overthink what they could do for a career because they don't know what they're good at, but everyone is good at something and everyone likes something, right? So that was quite good advice. So talking now about LinkedIn and outreach in that way. So can you explain your exact role at LinkedIn? Like, what is a day in your life like?
Sure. So I work in business development, and at LinkedIn, at least where I'm based, I'm based in the product team. So that's quite unusual, I would say, for business development, because business development a lot of the times is a bit like sales, or a bit like kind of getting a pipeline of buyers in some way. But at LinkedIn, for us, business development sits under product. And what it means is that we create product partnerships with other platforms that can drive more value to our members. So I can give you an example. For example, I'm working with Event Tech. And there are, event platforms that you can register as an attendee. And so we create that integration with them so that an attendee that registers for an event will see a little iframe that invites them to join the event also on LinkedIn. So you think quite creatively and strategically, but from the point of view of the actual product.
Interesting. So I want to strategically talk about the whole kind of sphere of LinkedIn, starting with somebody's profile, right? So if someone is, let's take a few case studies here, right out of college, they don't know what they're doing, They don't know what career, but say they studied business. What's the first step? So you make a LinkedIn profile and you
Yeah.
fill it out. You put your college there, but you don't really have anything on your resume.
Yeah. So I think first of all, you need to understand what industry you want to get in, what roles you might want to apply. I think before you set up the actual profile with the content, have a look at other people who are already working in that field and learn from that. Get inspiration from their profile and see, what keywords they're using. At the end of the day, this is a platform with algorithm, so you want to be a bit tactical in that. And then see how this aligns with what you want to do. And then, yes, you set up your profile. You put a really, really nice kind of a professional photo of yourself that is approachable, that's clear, where you're looking at the camera, to invite people. It's like it's the first impression. And then, yes, you don't have perhaps experience, but no one expects someone out of college to have work experience. It's legitimate, right? So what you do need to do is perhaps write aspiring, let's say customer success manager, aspiring teacher, whatever it is that you want to do in your headline. And of course, the course that you've taken, any projects that you led in university, any volunteering experience, try and kind of fill that headline that's just under your photo with keywords and information that will show people who you are, what you care about, and what value you can bring.
I didn't know that there was that strategy behind LinkedIn. So keywords and stuff. How do you know? Like even nowadays, if I'm posting them, what hashtags do I use?
And this is something that, by the way, changes all the time. But in every platform that you have, every platform that is based on some kind of an algorithm, there will be keywords that people search for, right? So, for example, I'm looking now for a customer success manager, so I will search for customer success manager, and whoever has that on their profile and within my, location and basically the profile that I'm looking for, they will surface on my feed. So it's very simple.
Okay.
You just need to have those right keywords.
Okay. Back to the profile. So you have a headshot, right?
Yeah.
This is not you at a bar or
No.
What about a selfie?
I mean, if you're putting a headshot, you might as well just do a professional one. I mean, not a professional that you need to pay for. You can take a selfie, maybe ask someone to take a photo of you with the phone. It doesn't matter. And I think today they also have technology that makes it really professional. So yeah, just invest a little bit of time in making it look good.
Okay.
And you don't need to wear a suit. When we talk about professional, it's not a suit or anything like that. It's just looking approachable.
What's a good outfit for a young woman or 20s, 30s to wear for their LinkedIn profile?
Well, it really depends on the industry that you're going into as well, right? I mean, there's no real rule, and I always say it's important also to be authentic to yourself. For example, if I would now wear a whole proper suit on me, I would feel a little bit out of place. You need to be comfortable. You don't need to dress up and become someone else. I remember that actually in my 20s, I used to wear suits because I wanted to look older and professional, but it was also a bit of a costume. So try and find a middle ground.
Okay, I like that. Should you put searching for partnerships or looking for work on your bio?
You can put something like that you're searching for opportunities, but actually there's a way to do that. So there are two ways that you can do that. You can mark only to recruiters that you are looking for jobs. And you can also put on your profile photo, there is that green banner that you're looking for a job. So then everybody could see that. So you have two options, either just for recruiters or for everybody to see. It's really up to you. Your preference.
And that's on the back end, right? That's the thing. Okay. Something I didn't actually ask you was about internships. Now, I don't know if you've ever had any. I have never found an internship via LinkedIn. I've always really cold emailed and cold outreach to get those kind of opportunities. But is there a possibility for someone to get an internship via LinkedIn?
Actually, I don't know, but I'm sure if you search for internships, then the right opportunities will come. But I don't know. I do know that I'm working with a lot of graduates that are looking for internships. So I guess, you can find. But I would say, be a bit more kind of strategic around that. If there's a company that that has an internship scheme or graduate scheme or something like that, follow the company, follow the people who work there, approach them. This is, I mean, if you look at the mission of LinkedIn, which is connecting the world professionals, this is why people come to LinkedIn. And this is, again, going back to the mindset. Know that whoever is there wants to connect. And so approach them exactly how we talked about before. Say why you're approaching, what value you can bring, what attracted you about their profile, and go for it. And you'll be surprised, because sometimes there's an internship scheme that is not known, not public yet, but is coming down the line, and you'll get the first chance.
Personally, what do you think about unpaid internships? Because a lot of people grapple with that, right? They're in college and they want to go and work for, say, a Condé Nast or a Hearst or some big corporation. And they also want to, make a living and pay their bills. But there's like a give and take with that, because it's very hard, I think, as a young person nowadays to say yes to the big opportunities if you're not making a lot of money. But then if you don't have financial backing from your parents, like who's paying your rent? Who's paying your student loans?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, I think internships need to be paid. And it's a shame that, some brands, they don't, just because they're big. I totally with you on that.
Would you suggest that if someone got a very big opportunity to work for something that could turn into a job, but started as an unpaid internship, take that, or put their foot down and find the right place that...
So I can give you an example from me, actually. When I wanted to work for a specific charity, it wasn't an internship. They did not have an internship, but I did put myself forward as a volunteer for that charity just to get the foot in the door. And I worked for 6 months. And again, this depends on your circumstances, if you can work or volunteer or, get unpaid. So this is just an example of getting a foot in the door, unpaid. And that really, it paid off.
It did? How so?
It paid off because... I managed to schedule an appointment with the CEO. And I told him, look, I've been volunteering for 6 months and this is what I've been doing. And I love it here. And in one way or another, I told him, I want a job. And at that time, there weren't any jobs. But I planted that seed. And so I think after a couple of months, they hired me.
Paid.
Paid,
Incredible.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So you could look at it as an investment a little bit on your end that will hopefully pay off.
Yeah, I'll even use like this as an example. I mean, even with this podcast, right? Like half the time I don't get paid enough to what it costs me to produce this podcast. But to me, it's not only brand awareness, but it's the opportunity to share someone else's story. In a sense, it's like doing free work for the benefit of like, hopefully it engages more people with my brand. And I think that's how people really should look at internships or like volunteer work.
Exactly. I think from the side of the company, they should pay. But if you look at it from the side of the graduate, then they definitely should look at it as a learning opportunity, almost like taking a course. For example, now I want to go into angel investing. I don't have that much money to invest. I don't know enough about the field. But I think perhaps I look at it as an investment in my own education a little bit and try and play with that area and see how I feel about it.
My dream would be to just angel invest in like other woman-founded companies.
That's why I'm going there.
There you go.
Absolutely.
I love, that's a good dream, right? It's awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay, so backtracking to the profile again. So if someone's applying for a job on LinkedIn, from your end, because you're kind of behind the scenes with being able to see how the technology works. I was talking to someone today. She applied for 400 jobs and she only got one person to reply to her. How can you set yourself apart to get attention?
Yeah, I mean, that's not to do with LinkedIn only, right? It's just the way the world is, because everything is digital and everything is very accessible to everyone, and you get more people applying to jobs, right? And so I would say to stand out, it's in a way to pretend that you're already working in those jobs. So on your profile, if we're talking about professional brand, on your profile, try and engage with the industry as much as possible, follow people, connect to people, comment on posts as much as possible, and connect with the hiring manager, connect with the recruiter. Show that you care, show that you are interested. I mean, for one of the jobs that I did get an interview what I've done is I created a little PowerPoint
Oh, cute. Okay.
and I pretended that I'm already working there.
Mm-hmm.
And I show them, how the project would look like if I'm taking it on.
I love that.
So you need to find ways where you stand out from the crowd, because you're right. Hundreds of CVs are being sent and you get rejected all the time because it's automated. A lot of the time it's automated. And I think, by the way, I heard from that ChatGPT can check if your resume, how it will be read in an automated, system.
So do you suggest putting your resume into ChatGPT?
I'm suggesting to just see if you're using the right words that the automated system could pick up on. It's a shame that it is like that, but these platforms, they help recruiters at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really applied for a traditional job, and definitely not via LinkedIn, which isn't good or bad. It is just kind of how it is. But I get a lot of emails that's like, hiring or apply for this job on LinkedIn. And then I'll go, and a lot of times I'll read like what they're looking for and stuff. As the person who receives that CV or resume on the other side, is there someone who literally sits there and looks through every application of the 15,000 people who applied to work at like Target or Wayfair or Spotify? How much of that is manual?
Wow, that's a good question. I bet it changes with the company. It changes with the department. Actually, the job at LinkedIn, I got through LinkedIn. I applied. I pressed apply.
No way.
And I was invited to an interview.
Okay.
And I was quite shocked at the time because I was almost the only one in my team who didn't come from Google or Apple or Microsoft. And I was quite amazed. Like, okay, that's nice. They mean it when they say diversity and inclusion. They give me a chance. They give me an opportunity, even though I come from a totally different background. So I don't know if anyone looks at it. I mean, in my case, there was a recruiter who was going with me through the whole process. And she knew me and she supported me. And that was amazing. But I can tell you that a lot of other companies that I apply for, you just get automated replies.
And do you think a lot of people who are posting the jobs on LinkedIn that they're seeking, are they also using other places besides LinkedIn to find candidates?
I don't know enough about that, but I assume so.
Yeah.
I assume so. The competition is big.
I always find too, when someone's like, I didn't get that job, I'm like, it's probably because the person who does the hiring met someone or was friends with someone. I mean, that personal relationship you can have with someone who does the hiring always just puts you at the top.
I agree. And also, in big companies, the bigger the company is, the more likelihood that there'll be also internal candidates as well. Although they're being interviewed like everybody else, they obviously know the company a little bit better. So there is a matter of luck here, but it's something that obviously the more you do and the more you do right, the more you increase your chances. And I got rejected so many times. I can write a book about rejection.
Me too. I'll co-write it with you.
But you know what? It's learning. And I always look back and it's like, actually good that I did not get this opportunity because it got me something else.
How do you get through the rejection, right? Because that young woman I was speaking to earlier, I mean, 400 people rejected. I don't know why. But, I mean, how do you keep going? Because she needs a job, but she keeps getting rejected. I mean, where do you find that fire inside of you?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, something I learned is not to take it personally, to understand exactly, what you said. This recruiter got thousands and thousands, and this machine got other CVs in line. So not to get it too personal. And also, and I really understand that whatever has to happen, happens. Looking back on all the rejections that I had, I got to somewhere much, much better that is much better fit for me. So, for example, just before I got the job at the British government, I was rejected from Uber. After 4 interviews, the role was to sort out their, I remember the airport, an Uber at the airport. And looking back, that was a wrong job for me. I mean, it's nice that I got 4 interviews, but going there afterwards to the British government is amazing. Thank you, Uber.
Yeah. So, no, that's cute. You're saying that at LinkedIn, when you went through that process, they mostly hired ex-Google, whatnot. What do you think stood out about you, and what was the process like for that the interviews?
So, first of all, I think in the industry on the whole, there is this movement to go through kind of skill-first hiring. So really, employers, the good employers, start to look beyond the experience, the years of experience that you have, or what you studied in the university, or which university you went to, and really try and look at the skills. Now, the way to look at skills, there's different ways, but the way that LinkedIn did that is to give me a case study to actually solve, to actually write. And I remember that I invested my heart and soul in that case study. It was not easy. I gave it all, and in a way, I pretended that I'm already working there. I was already working, and I think that's what made it. I remember afterwards, someone from the team said, "Your case study really stood out. It looks like it looks like you made an effort there."
Yeah. Is there any benefit to cold outreaching to a recruiter on LinkedIn? I mean, is that something you should do?
I spoke with the recruiter about that, actually, not from LinkedIn, but from another company. I mean, generally speaking, you need to also understand that the recruiters are overwhelmed with applications and people reaching out to them. So I guess there should be kind of a reason to reach out to them, not just to say, "Hey, look at me, I'm here." More like, it's been 2 weeks and I haven't heard from you. Would you mind just checking in on my application? Because the recruiter at the end of the day is like a coordinator. It's not the one that is completely calling the shots. Who you do want to try and engage with and the network around is the hiring manager. At the end of the day, it's also for you to check them, right? To see if they're a good fit to you. So in some ways, if you can engage with them through someone else in the network, and that's where professional brand comes into the play.
Yeah.
The more you are connected, the more you
course.
showcase your achievements, that's a good strategy.
What about how soon should you reach out to someone? So let's kind of walk from the beginning. So you apply to a job, you hear from a recruiter, they want to set an interview. You have the first interview, you think it goes really well, you don't hear. You're ghosted for a week, 2 weeks. So you reach out, you don't hear. You reach out a few days later, you don't hear. I mean, is there a certain amount of time that you should reach out? Should you email this recruiter and LinkedIn message them? Should you just go right to the CEO?
So, I always think if you send a CV, then they normally say to you within what period of time you're supposed to hear from them. So when that period of time has passed and you didn't hear from them, then it's completely okay to reach out. And if you still don't hear from them after 2 weeks, honestly, it's maybe not the right company to work for if they don't give respect to their candidates who made an effort and applied. One thing I would say is know that the whole process of interviewing really start from, or actually of accepting you, really starts from the interview in itself. So when you go into an interview, after the interview, write a little message to thank them.
Okay.
It's so important to show how much you care and your relationship and your communication. So really don't underestimate the actual process, not just your CV and the case study, but the actual process needs to speak for you.
Should you send that message via email, LinkedIn, text?
In the same way that they communicate with you. If you have a personal email of the recruiter, then reply back just to say thank you. If you don't, then to try other ways.
Yeah.
But you want to stand out for the right reasons.
Something I like to do, and obviously my career is a bit more non-traditional, so it's not with a traditional recruiter, but if I were to work with someone or interview someone who was just, I thought a potential for a lot more opportunities, I would always send a handwritten card or send some type of a gift. I mean, I do think that sets you apart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And think creatively,
Yeah.
right? I heard someone send cupcakes once. And think creatively. And that goes, by the way, afterwards for working with partners, working with clients. You always want to stand out and you always want to build a relationship with a person, not with a role.
Yeah. And I think the thing people need to remember is you may still not get the job. You may send the cupcakes. You may send this person a literal Louis Vuitton bag. If you get rejected, it has nothing to do with what you did or didn't do. It was just, I think, the timing or that position. But it means you will be remembered more than the person who didn't go above and beyond in comparison to that next candidate.
Absolutely. And I always change in my mind from hearing a no to hearing a not yet.
Mm-hmm.
Not yet.
I always
You'll
like
get
that.
there.
I love that. My dad always says every no is a yes in 2 years. I live by that.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the profile and the way that people interact on LinkedIn. How often should someone be updating their LinkedIn profile if they don't have anything going on?
Well, I mean, updating a profile is just one way of engaging,
Yep.
right? There's so many different ways. So obviously, if you have new things or new images or new events that you've been to, you can always look at the featured section and pin them, or add more to the experience section, or add more skills. These are things that can happen easily. But what I really, really like, and I discovered over the last few years, is the power of creating content on the platform. And this is something that ideally someone should do regularly. And it's not just creating your original content, it's also commenting on other people with your perspective, not just to say great, but actually why this is great, why it matters, and think how you can be positioned in the industry in the way that you want to be positioned.
What's the best way for an entrepreneur on that note to utilize LinkedIn? Say they have a B2B or B2C company, say they're more like a personal brand like me.
So it's first of all, look at the industry, see what are the skills or the experiences that you want to highlight, and then choose maybe 2-3 areas of expertise that you want to be known for, and just go for it. Write content around industry insights, events that you've attended, what you've learned, share, create value to your platform. That's the key. Create value to the platform, create value to the network, and don't kind of shift your mindset from thinking about how many people will see my posts to the right people that will see my posts. That's something that's really, really true to a platform like LinkedIn. I really many months ago, many years ago, actually shifted from virality to quality, the quality of the posts. And then another kind of way of looking at content is evangelizing people around specific missions or companies or products that you are positioning yourselves in. And the third part of content creation could be you as a mentor. Even if you don't have experience yet in your career, or if you are an entrepreneur, what led you to that field? How did you actually manage to build your own business? What is it like to lead a business? What is it like to lead a team?
I launched a LinkedIn newsletter, I think August of last year, when LinkedIn kind of came out. I think that was around when they came out with newsletters. And I also have a regular newsletter that I monetize. So I don't really monetize my LinkedIn. However, I know that there are a lot of content creators and entrepreneurs who can and do monetize their LinkedIn, because it's like any other social media platform. People can amass these massive amounts of following on LinkedIn. So in terms of, say, the newsletter, posting videos on LinkedIn, chiming in when it says like, LinkedIn invites you to be an expert to this post. What's the best way to grow a following on LinkedIn, get your name out there? Is it through all of the above? Is there one thing that you guys are really pushing right now?
I think when it comes to content creation and monetizing, I mean, LinkedIn is where everyone is, right? It's 1 billion professionals at the moment.
That's how many people are on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
It's wild.
It's wild, right? So it's really going to where the community is. Unlike perhaps other platforms that you need to bring the community to you, right? So look at it this way. And so when it comes to content creation, I always like to think about kind of a mix of formats. So you mentioned newsletters, which is great. There's collaborative articles. That's what you were referring to when you were responding to some questions. This is great because you don't need to create your own original content. You're basically responding to questions that the community asked. And these are great because they surface in Google search as well. So you get people from Google into the platform, seeing you as a thought leader in that space. Plus, you can get a top voice badge for if you.
How do you get that?
So there's top voice, like a proper top voice, and that's a whole process that you need to apply for. But there are also top community voices, which is those collaborative articles that I mentioned. Yeah. So you can be a top voice on a specific topic. And this is the more you engage with collaborative articles, the more chance you'll get to be a top voice.
Are the other top voices more like the Jessica Alba or kind of like a Steve Jobs kind of person?
Well, it's actually interesting. I only know those top voices who are top voices in their industry, not necessarily influencers or celebrities. I don't think it goes by the number of followers. Again, I'm not quite sure about the process behind the scenes, but I really think about it. It's about the value that you're creating in the industry that needs to be really significant. Okay. So I know people with only 30,000 followers that are top voices because they invest in educating the industry. They're very consistent in how they post. Their posts are of amazing quality and they generate great conversations. So
can people view LinkedIn as a tool like an Instagram or a Twitter or a TikTok in the sense of not just getting a career, but like building a name for yourself, building a personal brand?
Yes, I actually met a person now who she's an influencer actually on those networks that you've mentioned, and she's starting now building that brand on the platform. Again, not to get the next job because she's an influencer and she's entrepreneur. She has 2 businesses, but I think it's a really great way to position yourself in the professional context.
Yeah. I was on a call with a brand the other day, and they said, would you do a sponsored plug in a newsletter ad on LinkedIn? And I was like, I've never really thought of that, but it makes a lot of sense. I also find LinkedIn to be like podcasting. The people who engage and the people who draw, they're almost like really your fans. It's a cool community, even though you don't know all these people. Whereas Instagram, Twitter, people are just scrolling, right? LinkedIn, you're really there. You're looking at someone. You want to understand this process, the career. I got a free trial a few weeks ago for, I think, like the sales premium or LinkedIn premium. I'd never used it before. So I did the free trial, and I couldn't really quite grasp what I was doing, but I think I got like free credits, and I love to like cold outreach people on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But who would be a good person to use that service?
So there's going to be those job seekers, people who look for jobs, and they will get much more insights from premium if they have those premiums. And there will be people like me in my actually also in this job as well, when you need to connect to a lot of people on the platform because you need to find partners or you need to find clients or sponsors, and you need that, as you said, credit to reach out to as many people as possible. So you've got the business premium and you've got the kind of job seeker premium.
Okay, interesting. And then the other thing I was going to ask you that I just totally lost my train of thought was premium. Oh, there's 2 plugins that I know on LinkedIn that you can install. They're external to LinkedIn, but called LinkedIn Lead Leaper and Snovio. I don't know if you've heard of these, but you can install them. They're free, and it gives you someone's direct email and phone number on a browser like Chrome. Oh, wow. Do you know of things like this?
No, I did not know. Yeah. I love learning about new things.
And it's cool. Yeah, so you can do that. So if you can't get in touch with someone on LinkedIn, you can essentially just get their email or their phone number. There's not much more to talk about if you're not familiar with those 2, but I've used those before to kind of create the process for email following. What are some things you think people do wrong on LinkedIn?
Oh, wow. There's it's hard to kind of pinpoint because everybody's different depending on their journey.
Yeah.
I do think that when it comes to our mindset, what I've noticed since COVID actually, that people are much more open to connect. During the lockdown, LinkedIn was really our only way to reach out to other professionals. There were no networking events, and so I think people really, really opened up. And I'd love to see more people being confident in just cold reach out, not to sell me something, but more about trying to find a way to add value, whether it's to invite me or someone to an event or ask for that virtual coffee that we mentioned or informational interview, whatever it might be. I want people to really leverage that network to the maximum. That's what I would say, that people at the moment are still, at least the Gen Zs that you mentioned, shying away from because they are overwhelmed by all the CEOs and the chief execs that are on the platform.
I asked the founder and CEO or co-founder and CEO today of Eventbrite, Julia Hartz, when she follows up with someone after a networking event. Now, you and I just left a 3-day pretty intense I have like tons. I can't even imagine how many LinkedIn requests you have on LinkedIn. When do you reach out? If you went to an event and you met someone who you're like, oh, I want to connect with this person, how soon after leaving the event do you connect with them?
As soon as possible,
Okay.
really. And I've done that today, actually. I mean, as soon as possible.
You send an email?
I send a LinkedIn. I mean, when you have events, you have event apps, right? So you see who attends and those events, and then you go to LinkedIn, you check out their profile, and then you connect, or you can send them an email. I mean, depends how, if you want to wait to the connection requests. And so I do that as soon as possible. But obviously, there's another way of looking at it, is actually waiting a bit until the wave of connections fades. Maybe it's better to do that in a couple of weeks. But for my own sake, not to forget, I do that straight away.
I was thinking that too, and I know sometimes I write in my notes, like 5, if I met someone really important at the event, like the 5 people I need to reach out to that day. And then for an event like this, where there were so many people not from London, and the few people I did reach out to very fast after interacting with them were like, I'm getting on a plane back to SF, to New York, to LA. So for this one, I actually thought, I think I might wait like 2 or 3 days, which is longer than I usually would, because people are going to be on an air, like they just might not be in the headspace.
Yeah, and it's actually nice that someone connects with you 2 weeks later because, they thought of you.
Yeah.
And you resonated.
Of course.
Yeah.
Plus also the brand side, right? I mean, some of the brands that have the booths at LinkedIn, not at LinkedIn, at these events, networking events, are back to back with like trying to get the sales for it. I mean, I spoke to one woman and she was like, I don't even have any time. We had 3 events this year.
You know what? You convinced me.
Yeah.
It's better to wait 2 weeks.
No, not 2 weeks. Maybe like 4 days
4
or 5.
days.
I might.
That's the sweet spot.
Okay, two last questions for you, Elinor. What can someone do to get the most out of LinkedIn? Like, how can someone use and utilize the platform of LinkedIn the most?
Again, depends on their journey, depends on their objectives, right? But I would say try and be proactive and try and be strategic. I oftentimes look at the industries or the companies that are of interest to me. I really am passionate about social impact. So I will not let go of this industry. And if there are, for example, VCs in the social impact, I make sure that I follow and I connect with those people and I meet them for coffee if they will meet me. So don't let go those connection pieces as well. And then with the content creation, don't underestimate it, and also don't underestimate your ability to create great content on the platform.
And then my last question for you is, today on the panel that I had, we spoke about Gen Z. It was myself, a girl who has a Gen Z company, and then a VP at Snapchat. And they said something about, Gen Z has all these titles, right? Content creator, brand marketing, brand manager. On LinkedIn, I noticed there's all the titles. Like mine just says like founder and CEO of Be Fearless and host of the new Unfiltered. Though I do other consulting and stuff. Is there a proper way to do that title? Or is there something that's too many words that is not appealing to a recruiter?
I don't know from the recruiter side, but make it clear. If you think that your title perhaps is not clear, then I always like to see kind of the title and then what it is that you actually do. So, for example, I work at LinkedIn Business Development. I help create opportunities, economic opportunities for the world workforce, or whatever it is that your work actually means. And so you can put that in the headline, you can put that in the skills and experience, make it just clear for everyone. And when it comes to Gen Zs, we talked about this earlier, and people who are perhaps just starting in their career, I think their voice is very, very unique on the platform. So I just want to make it clear that people should not shy away from making their voice heard just because they are surrounded by all these big shots and CEOs, because we don't hear enough from people who are just starting off, and you have a really great chance of standing out.
What you said is incredibly important about utilizing LinkedIn and like the cold outreach and stuff. And I think also about the tool that LinkedIn is, right? That there's a whole algorithm behind it. And so everything you said was just absolutely incredible. So thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for inviting
today.
Me. It was beautiful.
Oh my! I could talk to you for hours because I've never even thought so much about LinkedIn. I mean, I use it like it's second nature. But especially even what you said about people kind of have to have a community find them on TikTok or Instagram, and on LinkedIn you can really build your own.
Absolutely.
You can have 30,000 followers, and those can be even more meaningful than say TikTok or Instagram. So it's awesome.
It's much more targeted. Yes.
Anyone who listens to this, can they reach out to you on LinkedIn?
With pleasure. With pleasure.
Elinor, where can everyone find more about, your work personally or any social media links you want to plug?
Only LinkedIn, my LinkedIn profile.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much.
I will put everything in the show notes as usual. And for those of you who want to connect with her, I will also plug her LinkedIn directly there too. And I will see you guys next week for a new episode of The New Unfiltered.